Okay, so public service announcement here. Your GPS can be a real lifesaver, but sometimes it can be the exact opposite. Trust me, I know. Before this all happened, I'd never heard any of the GPS horror stories. But they're out there, that's for sure. Google it if you don't believe me. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Here's how it all went down. I still remember the night I arrived at my new home. The headlights of my car cut through the darkness. The house wasn't in the greatest shape, but that makes two of us, right? It could use some paint, that's for sure. If houses had feelings, this one looked like it felt tired, maybe even forgotten. And after everything I'd just gone through with my divorce, I could definitely relate. But the house was mine, left to me by my dad after he passed a few years ago. I'd been renting it out to tenants when I was married. They moved out a couple of weeks ago, and now this old house was my fresh start. I turned off the engine, sat there for a moment, gripping the wheel. I know it seems weird to some people, but I had never lived alone before, never even handled home repairs. My ex-husband took care of everything. Pretty sheltered, right? But he was gone now, off with his coworker, the woman he replaced me with. She was confident, successful, self-assured. The kind of woman that's oh so easy to fall in love with, apparently. You know, I was bitter about it at first, but I've made peace with it. Toward the end, our marriage wasn't that great, to be honest. So maybe this was a chance for me to find a better life somehow. The house just kind of sat there, silent and waiting. I stepped out into the night. I shivered. There was a chill in the air. No neighbors, no streetlights, just the darkness pressing in around me. I was used to living with the noises of city life. Car horns, traffic, you know the drill. So the peace and quiet was something new, but I'll be honest, I wasn't sure if it was comforting or terrifying. Inside, the furniture was a bit, well, not my taste. But I'd offered the house as a furnished rental to the tenants with all my dad's stuff, and he and I didn't exactly have the same views on home decor. Anyway, I figured it would tide me over until I got furniture of my own. In case you're wondering, I'd let Roger, that's my ex, keep all the furniture in the divorce. Believe me, I didn't want it. I just wanted to move on and put that all behind me. I heard dripping in the kitchen. When I checked it out, the sink faucet had a leak. Oh great. Looks like my first official repair was on the calendar. I was pretty sure it wouldn't be the last. It was weird, but the walls were creaking. It caught me off guard, made my heart skip a beat. But that's what happens with older buildings, right? Weird noises are part of the package. I told myself it was just the house settling. I don't know why I expected to get a good night's sleep that night. Maybe exhaustion should have knocked me out. It was a long drive and a long day. But no such luck. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. Roger, my life, my future, or lack thereof. My thoughts were all over the place. Then, out of nowhere, I heard it. A noise. A thump. Followed a few moments later by a clank. I sat up so fast I nearly fell out of bed. The sounds came from outside my bedroom door. My pulse was going a mile a minute. Was someone in the house? Maybe it was some kind of animal or something. A rat? A raccoon? I reached under the bed, fingers closing around the wooden handle of the baseball bat I'd brought, just in case. My breath was shallow and my grip was tight. Step by step, I moved toward the door, pushed it open. The hallway stretched before me, empty and dark. Then I heard the noises again. The thump, the clank. This time they were followed by a deep, guttural groan. It was scary for sure, but it also sounded sad and broken, sad and heavy like heartbreak. My stomach turned to ice. Yeah, the walls had been creaking earlier, but this was louder than that. more sinister. I gripped the bat tighter, tiptoeing forward. I was able to figure out where the sounds were coming from. They were coming from behind a wall where I knew the furnace was. I let out a shaky breath, leaned against the wall. It was the furnace. It was just the old furnace kicking on. I felt this wave of relief. I headed back to bed. I was kind of proud of myself for handling things, but there was also this nagging doubt. Everything worked out, but I couldn't deny how scared I'd felt in the moment. I couldn't deny the terror. Maybe I wasn't as ready for this fresh start as I thought. The next day, I went into town for groceries. Near the entrance to the grocery store, a bulletin board caught my eye, filled with flyers. One in particular stood out. Singles mixer, meet new people. I hesitated. A mixer? I hadn't been single since high school. My ex was my first and only boyfriend before he became my husband. The idea of putting myself out there again felt impossible. It was too soon. If someone's just stomped on your heart like it was a cockroach in their kitchen, you should probably give your heart some time to heal, right? The smart thing would be to spend some time getting to know myself. Like I said earlier, I had never lived alone. Can you believe that? Maybe some me time wouldn't be such a bad idea. And yet, before I could stop myself, I tore a tab from the flyer. I don't know. Maybe meeting someone new wasn't the worst idea. The night of the mixer, I got myself ready. Put on a nice dress, did my makeup, and guess what? I didn't look too bad. In fact, I looked pretty good. Not to blow my own horn or anything. Maybe the mixer would be a blast. I was starting to feel really good about it. I got into my car and typed the address into my GPS. And I was grateful for GPS in that moment. How did people survive without it? On a dark night, in a new town, it would be easy to get lost without a little help from technology. The town was small and pretty rural, full of winding roads and deep woods. As I drove, the lights of town faded. They were replaced by long stretches of empty road. The mixer was in a nearby town, a few miles away from where I lived. The GPS voice kicked in, saying, "In 500 feet, turn right." I chuckled at how stern the voice sounded. I followed the GPS, watching as the pavement gave way to gravel. There were no streetlights, just the glow of my headlights. It was a little bit eerie, to tell you the truth, but I tried not to think about it. I made myself think happy thoughts like mixer, new people, fun. Then my tires lurched. I'd ventured a bit off the gravel road into mud without realizing it. The car sank a bit. The wheels were just spinning like crazy in the mud, going nowhere. My stomach twisted with fear. Not here, not now, I said to myself. I pressed the gas, but nothing. A long, haunting howl echoed through the trees. It was the kind of howl you hear in a horror movie right before some really bad stuff goes down. I swallowed hard. Was that a coyote? Could be. Or maybe it was a wolf. The fear grew stronger, rising in my chest. And it wasn't unjustified. I'd seen a story on the news about how the coyotes and wolves in the area had been moving closer and closer to homes than ever before, in search of food. So, they were hungry, and I was out here all alone. I felt like lunch meat. Slowly I eased my foot on the accelerator, praying, hoping. The tires caught, and with a lurch my car pulled free. I drove for a bit, careful to stay on the road away from the mud. And then the gravel road ended. I was back on pavement. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Maybe I could handle this. The road curved, and suddenly, I heard a sound I couldn't quite place. It was soft, almost like water. I cracked the window. It was the river. I hadn't realized how close I was to it. I bet this road was beautiful during the day. The GPS lady again saying, In 200 feet, turn left onto the bridge. I followed the voice. My headlights picked up the bridge up ahead. It stretched over the river. Looks like it was made of wood, but there wasn't enough light for me to know for sure. From what I could see, it looked rustic and quaint. I drove onto it. Yeah, it was definitely made of wood. I could hear the timber creaking beneath my tires. I was almost there. Then the road just disappeared. One moment I was driving. The next moment everything had changed. My car was flying, just hurtling into the abyss, shooting into the pitch-black void, flying through the open air. The impact was instant. Felt like I'd just run into a wall. The car slammed into the freezing water. My body ached like I'd been punched in a dozen different places. Darkness swallowed me as water rushed in. Panic clawed at my throat. My seatbelt was stuck. The fabric was cutting into my shoulder as I strained against it. It was digging into my flesh, relentless. Felt like I was locked in a watery tomb. Was this it? Was I gonna die here? Well, maybe, but not without a fight. I struggled, determined to make my way out of this. My fingers clawed at the buckle of the seatbelt. My chest burned. I yanked, desperate, but it was no use. A part of me said it was time to face facts here. I was gonna drown. Another part of me refused to accept that. There had to be a way out. I forced myself to be calm. I reached again, clutching at the seatbelt. And click! The belt released. Relief washed over me. But I wasn't out of the woods yet. I reached for the door. It was locked. I tried to unlock it, but that didn't work. I tried again, whispering a prayer. And the door opened. Just a crack, but it was open. I shoved, trying to create enough room for me to get out of the car, to get out before the car became my coffin. I heaved and pushed with all my might, but the door wouldn't budge. The water pressure was too strong, but I was not going to give up on myself. I'd made it this far, and I was starting to realize that I was a fighter. Shocking, right? So I said one last desperate prayer. Then I pushed again, with all the strength I could muster. The door gave way. I kicked off my shoes, propelling myself upward. My lungs were pretty much screaming for air. The cold cut through me. Up, up, up. Almost there now. I had to keep going. Then, finally, I broke the surface. I crawled onto the riverbank, wet and soaked to the bone, shaking like a leaf. I was so grateful for the feeling of solid ground beneath me. My hands clutched the dirt. Then, headlights appeared in the distance. A car slowed down, came to a stop. A man rushed out. "Are you okay? What happened?" I was in shock, too traumatized to respond. I turned, looked back at the river. The place where my car had vanished. The bridge, it wasn't there. Not all of it, anyway. Later, I learned the truth. Part of the bridge had washed away in a very recent flood. My GPS hadn't updated, so technology is great until it isn't. As you've probably guessed, I never made it to the singles mixer that night. And honestly, that was fine. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, just staring at the crumpled flyer for the mixer. And I realized something. I didn't need to go to some mixer. I didn't need to pull someone new into my life. Not right now, anyway. Not yet. Not until I had spent some more time with someone I was just getting to know. And that someone was me. Sure, I'd make some mistakes along the way. Make a few wrong turns, maybe, but I don't need anyone to take care of me. I'm a capable adult. I was pretty sure of that now, because even if the road disappears from underneath me and the night is black, I'm good on my own. I can handle it, right?